Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wizard101 video. Today we're going over a video topic that I feel like is extremely necessary in the current state of the game. Today I want to go over where should Spellements be placed in this game. Now if you don't know why I'm going over this or kind of why I'm even creating this to begin with, it's actually very simple. Now if you don't know, over the years different lore spells have been added to this game. Many different types of lore spells, from the Celestian lore spells with things such as Ship of Fools and Celestial Intervention, to things like the Wysteria lore spells, which is Pigsy / Ninja Piglet, stuff like that. Different lore spells have been added throughout the kind of course of this game. Now, when they're added, they're obviously added in the packs, but on top of that, they needed somewhere to put them and make the spells actually droppable, and usually that's been defaulted to Loremaster. Over time, this has kind of gotten very cluttered to the point where Loremaster now can drop about 20 to 25 different spells, which is a large amount, especially when you're trying to go for a specific spell, to the point where Loremaster really isn't even worth farming it for the spell anymore. A lot of people just farm it for the treasure cards. Now, this has been complicated and changed by the addition of the Spellement update. The reason why this has complicated things is that is a large amount of Spellements for one boss to drop. On top of that, and how they currently have it so that Spellements are dropped at a very low rate from Loremaster, and I know that this is a real problem for people who want to get things such as Ship of Fools and other various Spellements such as those. So today, I figured I would create the video where should Spellements be dropped from in this game. Specifically, where should Loremaster Spellements be dropped from in this game. Now, how I did this and how I'm going to do this is I've divided this into a few sections, and there'll be chapters for you to scroll through if you want to find a specific set of spells. But I went through each spell dropped by Loremaster and gave it a home. I gave it a location that I think it should be dropped and whether the drop should be removed from Loremaster altogether. My goal for this was to make Loremaster's drop pool a little bit smaller, and by a little bit smaller, I mean a lot smaller, and on top of that, add diversity and add interesting different locations for you to farm Spellements. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So first off, real quick, I'm going to give a list of the original Loremaster spells, gonna throw them up on screen as well, and then I will go to each location that I think they should be dropped at. So first off, the original Loremaster spells, and I would like to say I think all of these spells should continue being dropped by Loremaster in general and can actually be acquired from Loremaster. I think that this is fair and it would keep in spirit of the original Loremaster's design. These spells are Brimstone Revenant, Winter Moon, Handsome Fomori, Catalan, Keeper of the Flame, Ninja Pigs, Luminous Weaver, Goat Monk, Deer Knight, Lord of the Night, Samurai, Savage Paw, and finally Loremaster herself. So each of these spells were kind of the original ones dropped by Loremaster, and they're the kind of originals, the progenitors of lore spells. Now, as I said, I think all of these should be dropped by Loremaster, but where else should they be dropped? Let's get into that now. Alright, so first up we have Brimstone Revenant. Now, Brimstone Revenant is actually probably the toughest one on this list for me because there is not a lot of bosses that kind of fit the criteria that you would expect from the Brimstone Revenant. Now, there's actually only two that I can mainly think of in this entire game that look like it, and unfortunately, both of them are extremely inconvenient. So let me know if you can think of anything else, but the two that I can think of is Orin Grimcaster here and a boss that's in Vigrid Ruffland, which is also in a tower that shares the same design. Now, I shouldn't need to explain why these are both inconvenient. Both of them are in towers that are about 5 to 10 floors each, which is just really inconvenient when it comes to farming for a Spellement. So I can't really think of anything good otherwise, but if you can, let me know in the comments below. Next up, we have Winter Moon, and this is going to be a quick and easy one for you. I don't even need to walk around. I'd say just about any Aztecan boss, any Aztecan ice boss specifically, could drop Winter Moon. There isn't really any strict criteria for this one like Brimstone Revenant, where Brimstone Revenant and its design is very rare throughout the game. I feel like just about any Aztecan boss could theoretically drop Winter Moon, so I'm just going to leave it at that and say pick a boss, any boss in Azteca, and slap it right on there. Next one is Handsome Fomori, and this one is kind of funny because Handsome Fomori is actually a creature that you can fight in this game, but it is also a 2000 health ice creature. I believe it's ice nice maybe myth in High Road. Now, the reason why you can't use that is KingsIsle will deem it too easy. So what I propose is mod it Soulban right here in the wild. The reason why I propose this is that he shares the Handsome Fomori design, but on top of that, he also already drops the Handsome Fomori treasure card, so it kind of just makes sense maybe to add this Spellement to his pool. There isn't really many other Fomori type design creatures in Avalon. There's a few others, but this is the main one that I can think of, and again, I just think it would fit. Here we go again with another really easy one, and that is Catalan. The reason why Catalan is so easy is because there is actually a boss in this game that is named Catalan. It is a boss in Avalon, in Dundara right here. You get the quest from George R.R. Martin himself, and you are led into this cave, and you can see Catalan the Lightning Lizard. It simply just makes sense. Just make this drop Catalan. It's that simple. Next up, we have Keeper of the Flame, and I'm again going to keep this one simple. You could have this drop from just about any type of draconian boss in Dragonspire. It's really easy. It's only a 4-pip spell, and just about any boss that has that draconian theme would fit in having it drop a Spellement. So maybe find a myth boss in one of those, which there definitely is one, and just slap it on there. That's what I say for Keep It the Flame. For the next one, I'm actually going to do kind of 3-in-1, and it's all the Mushu related spells. Now, the reason why I'm actually bringing these up is because there's already bosses in Mushu that drop the lore spells. First off, there is Zeneki in Shirataki Temple. He is a fire boss. He drops Goat Monk. Just add Spellements to his drop pool. At the beginning of Shirataki Temple, there is a balance boss named Shoji. Shoji also drops Samurai. That just makes sense. Add Samurai to the drop pool. And finally, for Ninja Pigs, you have Koto in the Cave of Solitude, which obviously just add the Spellements. Now, what I would also like to propose for these Spellements is to add them to the 3 Onis throughout. I know that adding Ninja Pigs to the War Oni doesn't really make sense, but I think Goat Monk would fit very well with the Jade Oni, and the Plague Oni would fit Samurai very well. I think that all of those added up just simply makes sense. You can obviously shift those around a bit and maybe add them to some other bosses, but I think it's very fair to just keep the 3 Mushu spells where they are. So next up, and I'm just going to kind of wrap this in a blanket statement before moving back to the specific ones, is Luminous Weaver. I feel like Luminous Weaver is hard to place because there are many spider bosses in this game, and many of them fit. There's a spider boss in the Cave of Solitude. There's a spider boss in Marleybone. There's actually multiple spider bosses in Marleybone. I feel like you could add it to just about any of these and it would make sense. So I'm going to blanket Luminous Weaver again to any spider boss of KingsIsle's choosing. Next up, we have Deer Knight, and Deer Knight is very obviously an Avalon themed spell. So I thought there was a few bosses in Avalon that fit Deer Knight's theme, specifically potentially the Dark Knight here. Now I know that obviously he doesn't fit the design of Deer Knight, but he is a death boss. It could make sense to have a drop from there. Otherwise, there's Malgren here up here at the gate who fits the aesthetic of Deer Knight obviously pretty well. There's another boss over here in the outer yard that fits it as well. And finally, you could add it to potentially one of the dragon bosses at the end of Avalon in the Keep of Gainlon, which could have kind of slot it very easily into one of those. Next up, we have Lord of Night, and similar to Winter Moon, I'm just going to say an Aztecan boss. Just pick a death Aztecan boss and throw it on there. Lord of the Night is a bad spell anyway, so I don't think anyone really cares where this one goes. Finally, we have Savage Paw. I think specifically a place for this would be the Floating Mountains. You fight someone, a balance boss, who looks almost identical to the actual spell animation itself. I think it would be pretty cool if you just kind of slotted that in there. Yeah, you can see here, I'm not even going to try to say that name, but Mirror Knife here looks almost exactly like Savage Paw. Just throw it into his drop table and boom, you got it done. Now, that is the basic Loremaster spells down. Now we're going to go into a quick little section that I'm just going to kind of do a quick 1-2 here, and that is the holiday spells, because there are some holiday spells that exist in this game. First off, we have Headless Horseman, which is obviously a Halloween spell. I think this fits really well on Loremaster and can continue being there. Obviously, you could potentially add it to maybe a Halloween quest as well, and that would be pretty cool. Next up, you have Krampus, which I think again should stay on Loremaster, and also add it to the drop table of the special Krampus fight that you can find whenever Krampus comes around each year. Obviously, there are the unique fights. I don't actually know if it currently drops the Krampus spell, but it should definitely drop the Krampus Spellements in the future. And finally, we have Reindeer Knight, and this one, I think very obviously, again, Loremaster, and then potentially add it to some other winter dungeons as well. I think it's just one of those things where you could spread it around, spread it to multiple bosses. It's Christmas, who really cares? I think just wrapping it up, the holiday spells should stay generally on Loremaster, but add them to some other bosses as well. Next up, we have the pack Spellements, and these ones are going to be much quicker than the original Loremaster ones. And the reason for that is I'm putting them each in their unique areas, and obviously there are much fewer of them. So let's get into it, starting with what everyone wants to have access to, and that is the Celestian Spellemental spells. Now, keeping in line with Celestian Spellemental spells, they obviously need to drop from Celestia. That just simply makes sense. First off is Celestial Intervention. It simply makes sense to have the Celestians drop this, and I'm just gonna blanket this and say put it on just about any moon boss, and that kind of works. There's obviously the one in the Stellarium, there's the one in the Trial of the Spheres. Any of them could really work because the Celestial Intervention kind of spell animation just matches the Moon School. Next up, we're going to go for Spiritual Tribunal, which I actually have a pretty unique idea for this, and this is something that I showcased in my secret boss video. And if you didn't know, these pylons over here, by doing one of the side quests over there, I believe it's actually the miner right here where my mouse is, that you get the side quest from, you can actually activate each of these pylons and summon a different boss right here to fight. One of them over here is named Narralor Nightborn, and that is an interesting name to pronounce. He is a moon boss, has about 6,000 health, and I think it would fit very, very well if he gave you Spiritual Tribunal. The reason for that is that obviously there is a pylon and you need to actually activate a pylon. I think that kind of fits very well with a tribunal theme, kind of, and then obviously it fits his aesthetic as well since he is a moon Celestian boss. It just kind of works out overall, and it gives an interesting and unique boss to actually farm from rather than just a simple run-of-the-mill boss that you can actually get it from. Next up is Nautilus Unleashed, and Nautilus Unleashed is actually kind of hard because it doesn't really match the aesthetic of the Celestian Spellemental spells as much as the other ones. It's kind of just a sub that fires a massive laser into the sky, I believe, and then kind of just blows up the enemy. I would say for this one makes the most sense as a drop from Maglump here in the Science Center. The reason why I thought this specifically, he's a fire boss, it's the Science Center, and obviously subs are kind of sciencey, submarines, and technology, sciencey, Science Center, and it just kind of makes sense. I couldn't think of too many other bosses that fit, but Maglump here definitely fits the bill more than most other bosses in Celestia. All right, now here's the one that everyone's waiting for, and that is Ship of Fools. Now, I feel like this one is actually kind of interesting and kind of obvious because would you look at that? Hey, here's the two people in Ship of Fools. We got Blue Bart here, which is the tubbier one, and Seabooter, which is the thin kind of string bean pirate guy. Now, both of these two are the people in Ship of Fools. They're the designs for it, and it simply just makes sense if Ship of Fools actually drops from here. I think that would be a simple way. This is in the Crustacean Empire over in the Barbican area near Queen Calypso here. It simply just makes sense if they drop Ship of Fools, and that is it for the Celestian Spellemental spells. Next up, we have the Grizzleheim lore spells, and I'm not going to list locations for these, and that is for one reason and one reason alone, and that's that King's Isle won't add more locations for these. I think this should be pretty obvious, but they designed an entire fight in the King Boar fight in Saverstead Pass. They're not going to move drops into the rest of the kind of drop pools of different Grizzleheim bosses. I think it simply just kind of makes sense that it's going to stay on King Boar. Now, I'm not going to say that they should take it off of Loremaster entirely, but it is a potential idea to raise the drop rate of King Boar and kind of remove it from Loremaster to give Loremaster drops some air, but otherwise I don't think Grizzleheim lore Spellements are going to be moved all that much. Next up, we have another shorter one, which is going to be the Wysteria Spellemental spells. Now, the reason why I'm going to say this one's going to be quicker is because I genuinely have no idea where to put these Spellements. The reason for that is that I frankly think most of this world, the enemies that you can fight are a little bit too weak for are a lot of the Spellements, specifically Pigsy and even Ninja Piglets, are way too strong in comparison to the rest of the world. What I would propose here is to just simply add a completely new dungeon to this area that drops the different Spellements. I think that would be best. Similar to the Grizzleheim Spellements, it just makes sense to kind of add that. I think it's hard because the Tower of the Elephant is too hard and doesn't really fit, and the rest of Wysteria is too easy and definitely doesn't fit. So I would propose just add a new dungeon here that would simply make the most amount of sense to me. Now, next up, we have the Ravenwood Rangers lore spells, and this was probably the most difficult out of any of the Spellements to actually place, because these Spellements are completely unrelated to most worlds in this game. If you don't know, these are the Spellements of Camp Bandit, Berry Surprise, and Splash Squatch. Now, the reason why each of these is so hard is that they are, as I said, entirely unrelated to the Wizard101 worlds. Berry Surprise is kind of fitting the aesthetic of something like the Floating Land and Grizzleheim. Specifically, you could say Lemuria and the kind of beach area it matches a little bit, and that's, I'm sure, what it's supposed to be based on, but I don't think it really fits enough. I also don't think they should put a Spellement that late in the game in Lemuria. Camp Bandit makes absolutely no sense and really doesn't fit in anywhere because there is a raccoon in the spell, and as far as I know, there is not a single world in this game that has raccoons in that style at all, which is a bit rough and definitely leaves me without many places to put it. And finally, you have Splash Squatch, which again doesn't fit anywhere. It's a Yeti kind of design, but it is a brown Yeti, and as far as I know, we haven't seen one of those. As far as I know, we've only seen white Yetis. So I really don't know where to put these. I could give them random locations throughout Wizard101, and if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments below, but otherwise I don't really know, and I think they just need to add a new dungeon or something along those lines for us to actually be able to place these Spellements anywhere. Until then, I say I guess just leave them on Loremaster. I don't really know what to say otherwise. Alright, next up and finally we have the Immortal lore spells, and these ones are definitely very nice compared to the last few sets because there's a very obvious and very easy place to actually put these, and that is Aquila, what they're based off of. First off, and very obviously, you have Athena Battle Site. Athena Battle Site is literally based on Athena, which is in the first dungeon of Mount Olympus. I think it'd be very easy to add simple drops throughout Mount Olympus to bolster the spell, whether it be from the actual secret boss, Gladiator Demacharis, or a Poyo Bright one, or Ares, whatever. Just add some of the Spellement drops to the dungeon. I think honestly every boss could drop Athena, and that would be pretty cool. On top of that, there's Hephaestus, and we also meet Hephaestus in Mount Olympus, and it would be very easy to add him to the drop pools of all of them as well, which would be pretty cool. I think they could also add it to Atlantia or Tartarus if they wanted to, and maybe spread them out a bit more so it's not just on Mount Olympus, but I do think they would make very good additions to each of the drop pools. The final Immortal lore spell and the final spell of all of them is actually Queen Calypso. Now, the reason why I'm back here in the Crustacean Empire is I feel like there's only one boss fitting of the Queen Calypso drop, and that is Queen Calypso herself. If you don't remember, in the Crustacean Empire, you actually fight Queen Calypso on a sunken boat right over here. She has the exact same model as the spell animation, and it just simply makes sense to add it to her drop pool. I think, again, it's a simple and easy boss to kind of add there, and it would make sense in general. But that's really it for this video. Boy, do I have a bit to cut down. This is currently 32 minutes, should end up under 20 minutes. Here's Queen Calypso, as you can see. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What do you have in mind for certain Spellements? Because I'm very excited to hear what you have to say. I want to brainstorm, and as a community, I kind of want to figure out where to place these Spellements. Currently, right now, Loremaster is way too overpacked with these Spellements, and I think it simply makes sense to move them around and shift them around, and KingsIsle has said that they're going to do this in the near future, and I kind of figured this would be a good video to make to brainstorm some of those ideas on where they should be, rather than just kind of looking at the Spellements and taking it for what it is. So that's really it for today. Make sure to drop a like and hit the sub button if you want to, but otherwise, that is it. Thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next video. Adios.